The Irishman. Directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and of course a huge cast of others. The Irishman is the story of an old mobster who is basically recounting the tales of his past and his possible involvement in the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. So this is a movie. First of all, I have a friend of mine. He's doing his best of the decade films, and he's challenged me and a bunch of other like-minded movie lovers to present our best of list. So we're supposed to cut it down to maybe 50, maximum 30 for the decade. So The Irishman, of course, is a movie that I had to see before I could close off my list. And the reason I bring that up is I'm not the hugest fan of gangster films, but the pedigree behind this movie and what this movie was trying to pull off, technologically speaking, and that sort of thing, I absolutely had to see it. So let's get into what I thought of it. And I'll start with the visual. And when I speak of visuals, of course, I'm talking about the look of this film in terms of the era. Does it look authentic to that time period? I think it's like the probably 40s, 50s, 60s, that sort of thing, the time period we're dealing with. And I would say, of course it does. This is Martin Scorsese. He doesn't leave anything to chance with stuff like that. He's a stickler for those types of details. So the film definitely has that look to it. And if you're a fan of his work, I think you'd be really happy with what he did here. Like his other films, it's not just about the costumes that the characters are wearing or details like that or hairstyles and stuff, but it's the entire neighborhood and the locations that the stuff is shot in, and that it's authentic to the time period it's in. And I think they did a really good job with that, because you definitely get sucked into that immediately as soon as flashbacks begin. I was as I started watching the movie, I was instantly like, what time period is this? So it does look authentic to that period. And then of course there's the technology behind this movie done by ILM, and it's the de-aging of these actors. I think it's really just done on these three actors: Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino. And for the most, I would say it's well done. I mean, what they managed to pull off here, we've been seeing this sort of thing before. Of course, we've seen it before with Marvel and everybody, but we've never seen this type of movie use this type of technology. Usually they use practical effects, but this is something where they needed to take 30 years off these characters, maybe 40 years off the ages of the actors. And I think especially with I would say with Joe Pesci, I think they did a really good job. Al as well. Now when it came to Robert De Niro, for me, there were moments where I would get that feeling. It's like, if you play video games, you know what I'm talking about. As good as this stuff can look, and it really looks amazing here, they get like wrinkles and laugh lines and all of that stuff in there. The eyes, there's something about the eyes that can be kind of dead. And I see it a lot with Robert's character, Frank, the Irishman, Sharon. I see it there. I don't know if it's because of the blue eyes that it stands out a bit more on him than it does on Joe Pesci and that sort of thing. But it did pull me out time to time when that would happen, when I would get like a long shot of his face, and I'd just be focusing on those eyes, and it would just be like, something is off here. It just seems like there's nothing behind those eyes, But it didn't happen often, and the performances themselves are so good that I could let that go. And I'll get into the performances now, the acting, which of course I feel like everybody brings their A game to this, because they're working with Scorsese. They're gonna want to bring their best, and these are actors who, for the most, have not really been doing amazing work. These are men with stellar filmographies, of course, but in recent years it's been so-so. It's been a little crazy. I mean, Al Pacino showed up in Jack and Jill, of all things, but here I felt like you could see that passion for what they were doing come back, and that especially goes for me with Al Pacino. His performance was the performance that kind of woke me up, because there was a point where Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, of course these guys are fantastic together, but I was just kind of watching the movie like, okay, yeah, this is good, I'm enjoying this is fine, this is all right. And then Al Pacino comes on as Jimmy Hoffa, and I sit up. There's like a renewed energy when he's on screen, and my interest is piqued, and I'm just sucked into anything, any conversations that include him. So I just feel like he was a little bit above, he went above and beyond, and he maybe he was more invested, a little more passionate about what he was. If I had to give the award for the best actor for this movie in particular, I would get it, in my opinion. He's amazing. He has Jimmy Hoffa, but that does not speak ill of Joe Pesci or Robert De Niro. And Joe plays against type in this, which is so kind of insane to see. He's the one who usually goes, batshit crazy, and it was kind of nice to see a version of him playing a version of a character who's a lot more stoic, a character who, he doesn't let his emotions just fly off the handle, so to speak. I dug that about this character, actually. I like that a lot. I always feel like, it's too should I say, predictable to have like a mob boss who's always like having a temper tantrum and beating somebody to death and all that sort of thing. I always find, any movies or television series that cover these types of characters, mob bosses or drug traffickers, whatever, that kind of thing, is to see an intelligence to those characters. That makes sense to me, because if you live in that kind of life, I mean, you have to be pretty smart to stay alive. So I enjoyed that aspect of what Joe was doing as well. Story-wise, this movie, I mean, it's based on a book. I think the name of the book is So I Hear You Paint Houses, or So I Heard You Paint Houses. And that term basically means, so I know you're a hitman, that sort of thing, which I thought was kind of pretty cool and pretty messed up. I've never read the book, but the story here is riveting enough that, I mean, most of us, you may have heard the name Jimmy Hoffa, he disappeared, but that was about the extent of my knowledge, and you hear jokes about he's sleeping with the fishes and that sort of thing, but to really get into this and see that character and his family and his friends and that sort of thing, it was entertaining. It was intriguing to watch, and that's another element of this movie that I quite like, because as massive as this film is in terms of scale and budget, this feels like it's a story of three men. Like, it almost feels like this could be an independent film that focuses on three personalities, three characters, and their friendships, and how you try to sustain loyalty and friendship in a world like that, where eliminating somebody's, taking somebody's life is just considered a business transaction. I just found that was the most compelling aspect of this movie for me, was that friendship and how that affected them and their families and that life that they were living in. Other than that, this movie for me is a bit of a slog. It's really long. I did feel that time crunch, I wouldn't say I was bored, but I definitely was like, ooh, this is still happening, this is still going, that sort of thing. I did have moments where I felt like that watching this movie. Another aspect of this film for me that was a negative was the young versus old. Now, by that I mean, these actors they're not being replaced by younger actors like what used to be done in past films. They would hire a younger person to portray Robert De Niro, or aka Frank the Irishman, that sort of thing. These actors at their age, which I guess is their 70s or however old they are right now, playing 40-year-old versions of themselves. And the problem with that is whenever they have to be physical or anything like that, it gets a little wonky. I'll give you guys an example, and I'll try not to be too spoilery. There's a scene where Frank is beating up a guy for doing something. He's offended him. And it's so awkward, guys. It doesn't look, everything about that scene looks really awkward. It looks weird. It looks like the guy's just lying on the floor, and the kicks don't even really look like they're landing properly. I don't know if it's the technology, like trying to make him look young in the moment while he's doing that. It just looks like an old dude with a young face beating up someone. So the movements are stiff and wonky, and it doesn't look natural at all. And I see that too sometimes with how they stand or how they sit and get up. You can see there's age behind that, so to speak, that they're trying to move like younger men, but it's not that easy to do. So it's weird. It's weird to see somebody, with this young face, but the energy of an older person. It doesn't quite work, and it does make for some awkward moments here and there that just feel stiff. But overall, guys, this is a good movie. I would not speak ill of this movie. I would definitely say watch it, and it's available on Netflix now. So if you have a Netflix account, you can definitely check this out if you haven't seen it in cinemas. That's how I watched it this weekend, and I'm gonna give The Irishman a 7.5 out of 10. I know a lot of people out there singing praises to this movie, rightfully so. For me, like I said, gangster films are not my forte. It's not something I really get into. But as a character piece, I absolutely enjoyed those aspects of this movie. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed seeing how their world works, so to speak, and the realism behind this film as well. I have to give it points for that. So for me personally, it's a 7.5 out of 10, but it's a definite win, and it's a definite must-see of a film. And that's going to be it for this, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. It's really appreciated. New visitors, you can subscribe to my channel if you'd like to by clicking on my face right over there, and you can check out past reviews right there. And that's gonna be it, guys. We're getting down to the end of the year, getting down to the wire. I still have to see Frozen, and I'm gonna try to check out Knives Out as well this weekend and get back to you guys on that. Until next time, bye bye.